Good morning.
Good morning.
Merry Sunday before Christmas. Nice to see you all. I'm Reverend Mary Marie Shelton. I'm the community spiritual leader here at Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living. And if you are online with us this morning, welcome back or welcome for the first time. This is the Sunday before Christmas. And so we're going to take a moment to make sure that everybody is welcomed into the space. So please get up, walk around, introduce yourselves to anybody you don't know, welcome people back, give each other a hug, wish each other Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays. And those of you at home, give yourselves a hug, have a little more coffee, take a little hike around the living room if it's raining or snowing where you are. Come right back and join us. We're going to sing our opening song in just a moment. Merry Christmas.
See you, my friend.
All right, coming back and have a seat or find yourself a seat. We have our dear Gary Lynn Floyd from Reno, who would be on video doing the music for us this morning. And as you know, he is the resident artist at the Reno Center for Spiritual Living. We don't have a resident artist. Maybe one of you wants to take that job, as resident artist, whoever that might be. But Gary's back, and he won a 2020 Empower Music Award for his song Love Always Finds a Way, which he wrote with Amy Bishop and Karen Drucker. So if you want to know more about Gary, you can go to GaryLynnFloyd.com. But right now, here he is to get us started off in this Sunday right before Christmas. So I'm going to invite you to stand if you can do that and join us right now.
Good morning, Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living. Gary Lynn Floyd back with you this morning. I can't believe it's been another year that we've spent together. Would you please sing with me this song that I wrote with my friend Lainey Bernstein? It's called Pure Light. It goes like this. Life is in me, moving through me, beyond question, steady and strong. Power and presence is my essence, been within me all along. What is there to be afraid of? Yeah. Pure light is what we are made of. Sing all that again with me. Life is in me, moving through me, beyond question, steady and strong. Power and presence is my essence, been within me all along. What is there to be afraid of? What is there to be afraid of? Yeah. Pure light is what we are made of. One more time, all the way through. Life is in me, moving through me, beyond question, steady and strong. Power and presence is my essence, been within me all along. What is there to be afraid of? Yeah. Pure light is what we are made of. What is there to be afraid of? What is there to be afraid of? Yeah. Pure light is what we are made of. Now the last chant. We are made of pure light. 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 Pure light. Pure light. Pure light. Thank you. You sound great this morning.
You may be seated. Gosh, you just sounded wonderful. I guess you know that song. Kind of, sort of. So this is the time to go ahead and silence your cell phones so that they don't disturb you or anybody else during the service this morning. We're going to take this time now to turn within and get ourselves centered for the morning music and message. So I'm going to bring up our returning practitioner back from the mountains, Marilyn Letsos, to pray us in this morning.
Join me now as I go deep within myself. Join me and come to that place within that is the most authentic, the most real, the most passionate place within each one. And as I go there within myself, I find God. I find God within as I listen, as I get quiet. I feel that infinite presence, which is present everywhere. And that power, that presence, is in me now, and I can feel it building. Because I am part of this power, it announces itself within me. And as this is true for me, it is true for everyone. The reality of our being is the infinite presence, is that good that seeks expression all the time through each one, as each one, at the level of the expectation of each one, at the openness of each one. And this power, this presence, heals all separation. And when I am connected with that spirit, when we are, then we are heirs to all of the gifts of spirit, wholeness, abundance, power, peace, love. It's all here within, waiting for us to get quiet enough to say yes to that experience of love. And as we prepare for that season that celebrates this love, I speak my word for that ability for that shift in consciousness that leads to the experience of that one, that love, that all that is, God, life itself, that knows all things because it is present everywhere in all of its creation. And so I give thanks now for that readiness, for that divine ability to simply let go and let God be everything. And so I give thanks for that openness and for this service to tell us more about what we came for. I give thanks that this is so, and so it is.
And so it is.
Amen.
Thank you, Marilyn.
That I may dwell in the house of love. May my heart swell with power from above, so I can tell I have not been forgotten. This is my sole desire. Further, deeper, higher. This is my sole desire. Come flood or fire. This is my sole desire. That I may be an instrument of grace. May all you see be mercy on my face. Then one day we will all be together. This is my sole desire. Further, deeper, higher. This is my sole desire. Come flood or fire. This is my sole desire. This is my sole desire. This is my sole desire. Set my soul on fire. This is my sole desire. This is my sole desire. This is my sole desire. Set my soul on fire. This is my sole desire. This is my sole desire. This is my sole desire. Set my soul on fire. This is my sole desire. Is my sole desire.
Wow, we're almost at the end of 2024. It's hard to believe. Flew by, as all people tend to say. The more years you have, the faster the years go by because they're only such a small part of your life now. So this year, I could swear we just celebrated Christmas. But here we are. We're right on the verge of it again. A grand rising has been our theme for 2024. And we've certainly had all kinds of experiences this year to cause us to need to rise, to need to lift ourselves out of our habits and consider other ways of responding to things. However well or poorly we've done at that, the universe has invited us to do that, and probably will continue to invite us to do that, to step up into more. Somebody wise once said in a personal growth training I was in 100 years ago, that love comes up and reveals everything unlike itself. So everything that is unloving in the presence of love is safe enough to reveal itself so that it can offer itself for help and healing. And the difficulty, I think, for us is that we become so fearful of the shadows and the darkness that rather than letting it be enfolded in love so that it has the opportunity to see itself and transform, we tend to either run away or push it away. Like, don't impinge on my good mood. Or, don't wreck my holidays. No, I don't want that. This is supposed to be love and light and beauty and joy and peace and yada, yada, yeah? But it doesn't always feel like that. And that has been true not only in this past year for us, but it's been true for people always everywhere, that as much and wonderful as your life might be at some moment, there's always one thing or one relationship or one physical challenge or one financial issue or something that's also hanging out in the mix. It's that Tao symbol. You've got a little drop of something that's not your favorite in with a bunch of good stuff, or you have a whole lot of stuff that's really challenging, but there is this little drop of something really good going on. It's just hard to pay attention to it because there's other stuff distracting us. You with me here so far on this? Okay. So the idea of the month of December was looking at the idea of how do we bring this year in for a landing in some kind of a good way? How do we really stick the landing of this year? And it isn't about finding fault with everything that we fell short on. It's more like, what are the high points that I can pull together and be enthusiastic about? What is feeding me and asking me to carry it forward into the new year? And so we come around to this season of Advent once again, where we've been lighting this Advent wreath every week. The first week was hope. Hope for our own unfoldment, our own awareness, our own realization of who we really are. The second week, the second light was for peace. The recognition that when we know who we really are, then we begin to feel more peaceful about any chaos that's around us because we know what's true everywhere. And then we came to last week, where instead of a purple candle, we lit a rose-colored candle for joy. This is the joy of anticipating great good, that we don't know exactly what it is, but we're anticipating joyfully. And then today, the fourth, now purple again, candle is for love. The recognition that just like the circle of the wreath shows us unconditional life and love of the presence of God, we too are made from that same thing and from the oneness that is everything. And in that oneness, then, we become something more than we appear to be. So let's affirm love together today. You can take it right off the screen. Love is all that I am. It is the truth of every person, whether they know it or not. Underline that. I choose not to be fooled by appearances. I know that love is present even in those who seem to have forgotten it. Yes, and even in us when we can't quite access it or we can't quite recognize that that's us too. Have you ever admired anybody? Sure. Anybody at all? Okay, you've admired someone. So there's some quality or qualities about that individual that makes you respect and admire them. You look at them with appreciation, maybe a little awe. Whatever it is that you are so admiring of in that other person exists right where you are in you. And what you're recognizing is the reflection back and forth of what is in you and also in them. We can't recognize qualities in other people that we've never experienced, that we have no familiarity with. We can't admire someone else unless they carry some qualities that we have, although we may not give ourselves credit for them. We may not see as clearly that we carry those good qualities as we see in someone else. So if you do admire someone, that's good news. It means that there is something awakened in you that relates to that, and that is a wonderful blessing. Today we're also going to light the Christ candle at the center. This is the candle of purity, of recognition of the absolute truth of that presence within us. Normally we do this, we light this Christ candle on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day when we have a service for that. And this year, we don't have a place to have a service because, having moved our office a year ago, we lost the firelight room in the old building, which was, one of the things that was positive about that building. I only this week heard that in our current building somewhere there is a conference room. So I'll look and see what that's like so that maybe if we're still there next year, we'll do something in the conference room. But this year, we don't have a space to have a service, so we're honoring this morning the birth of Jesus. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that birth. So I also have the creche set up over here, and this is a little nativity set that my brother gave to me. My brother, who is 20 years older than I was, gave to me when I was about 10. So I've had this a really long time. And he made the stable out of cardboard himself. So this is a tribute to my brother and my family as much as it is to the birth of Jesus. But so when we shift now to the fifth candle being lit as well, this is not just a recognition that Jesus was born. Big deal. I just saw a photograph of my son and his little baby, Barrett, with the rest of their birthing class of fathers, all with their babies. And it's the cutest thing you ever saw. To every one of those fathers, that birth was as much a cause of celebration as this one that we annually pay special attention to. If it were only that Jesus was born, which we do know, of the little we know about that man's life, we do know he was born. There is enough historical information to sustain the idea that he was born. But there are many questions about that. So today, our theme is dive into the unknown. Now, pretty much there's a lot about Jesus that is unknown. And yet, the emphasis of his life carried forward through all these centuries because of the disciples and because of St. Paul, who was rabid about spreading what he believed, both before and after he became a disciple of Jesus. I mean, Saul was his name originally. He was a radical. He was a radical Jew who became a radical Christian. He went everywhere to tell people about Jesus. He'd never met Jesus. He only knew the stories of Jesus and his one and only mystical experience of Jesus. He assumed it was Jesus because that was his understanding of his experience. And it was so profound that he went around and spread that everywhere. Everything he could learn about Jesus, he went and spread everywhere. And then Luke, who was actually a Greek physician that traveled with Paul, wrote down all the stories that Paul told and that he heard and saw from the other scriptures that had already been written, mostly Mark. And so the stories of Jesus came forward. But if you look into the Gospels, there are two different nativity stories. They're not exactly the same. One is in Matthew, the other is in Luke. Mark and John don't talk about Jesus' birth specifically. They don't say anything about it at all. And Jesus never refers to it himself. So here we have this experience of this image. And what we find is there's nothing like a good birth story. There's nothing like a good birth story to cement in our minds the importance of a particular individual. So It seems odd, I guess, to us that we might have these stories of Jesus' birth that historians and ancient historian philosophers and linguistics experts and experts in Jewish tradition and mythology say probably were made up. Probably were made up. As a matter of fact, if the events in Jesus' life that appear to come from stories of Krishna, really, a Hindu manifestation of Vishnu, the god Vishnu, if all of the stories of Jesus that appear to come from Krishna were eliminated, most of the key Christian beliefs about Jesus would also have to be abandoned. Virgin birth, divine incarnation, crucifixion, descent into hell, resurrection, ascension into heaven, or borrowed from Mithra, 12 disciples, the Last Supper, Holy Mass, the body and blood of the Savior. All that stuff belonged to people who predated Jesus. Interesting, huh? So we look at December 25th, and some historians would say, well, he couldn't have been born in December because it would have been too cold for lambing at that time for them to be out in the fields. Well, apparently not necessarily in that part of the world. But December 25th was already an auspicious date. So really useful to use it again. Because in the pagan world, December 25th was the birthday of Sol Invictus, the sun. The invincible sun. It was also, I think, the birthday of Dionysus. It was considered the solstice always at that time. And in fact, let's see. So also Horus in the Egyptian tradition was conceived by a virgin, the only begotten son of the god Osiris. His mother's name was Mary, M-E-R-I, as opposed to Miriam, who was Jesus' mother. His foster father was Seb, who is also known as Joseph. Interesting. He's of royal descent. He was supposed to have been born in a cave, which they sometimes, in some stories about Jesus, say he was born in a cave. He was announced by an angel to his mother that there was going to be a divine birth coming. His birth was heralded by the morning star, Sirius. His birth date was December 21st, the winter solstice. His birth was witnessed by shepherds. 3 solar deities came later to worship him. And somebody tried to have him murdered. Herod, not Herod. Mithra was born of a virgin also in a stable. Shepherds and magi bearing gifts came to his birth also, to that goddess, to that particular god-man. So, the stories, if they got borrowed, we have one story that has angels and shepherds. We have one story that has 3 wise men from the east, the wise men that are called magi. Magi is the plural name for Persian or Zoroastrian astrologers, essentially, who came they followed the star, they came to the stable, apparently some days later. But in our stories, they all are there at the same time. I've got the sheep, I've got the shepherd, I have the kings, I have mom and dad and baby Jesus and the angel, everybody right there in a nice, neat little package, okay? We've got all the stories, slammed them together. In fact, we have even named these kings or whatever they were, the magi, we've named them. These stories are meaningful because they have a deep symbolism that gets rooted in us. They're important to remember about an auspicious time of year, about an auspicious coming forward into life of a God-man or a God-realized man or being. So we look at this birth story, which really from our perspective could look pretty out there, like any wonderful fairy tale, right? His mother is impregnated by God. She's a virgin. Now, let me tell you something about that. The original audiences of this story would not have been at all put off by the idea of virgin birth. This was a long time before science determined exactly how babies came to be. And it would have felt familiar to listeners of that time because the ancient Mediterranean was full of tales of legendary men who had been born of gods. In fact, in the Roman Empire, even their emperors were considered to be born of gods or gods themselves. The New Testament doesn't say anything about the virgin birth except in the nativity narratives. Now, one of the Gospels is hearkening back to a prophecy from the book of Isaiah. And it's interesting, the things that were picked and chosen, because one of the things said the child will be called Emmanuel. Well, the only person that ever calls Jesus Emmanuel is the Christian church. His family didn't call him Emmanuel, which is kind of a clue that they didn't think he was the fulfillment of the prophecy. So maybe his mother was not announced to by an angel. We don't know. But it does say in the information I was looking up that the majority of early Christians outside of Judea and throughout the Roman Empire did not know the Old Testament in the original Hebrew. They only knew it in a Greek translation, the Septuagint. And so when the Gospel of Matthew quotes the book of Isaiah, it uses the Septuagint, which includes the term parthenos, commonly understood in Greek to mean virgin. But this is different from what it says in the original Hebrew, where the word used is not the same word that in Hebrew is used for virgin. It is the word alma, which properly translated means a young woman. So he was born of a young woman who became a virgin in translation. And the text also of the Bible, the whole Christian Bible, wasn't standardized until the Middle Ages. So every copy was copied by hand. And because there was no such thing as, honoring the author, the original author, people who were copying things made little corrections where they thought, oh, that can't be right. So they fixed it, right? And everybody fixed it just a little bit differently. Or maybe they felt something needed to be emphasized to bring these Christians in line at this particular time, and so it might get tweaked a little bit differently. Do you see? So this is what we have coming down, getting translated over and over and over again. Rumi said, Christian, Jew, Muslim, shaman, Zoroastrian, stone, ground, mountain, river, each has a secret way of being with the mystery, unique and not to be judged. So whatever it is that we take from these sacred traditions, one of the things that is consistent in these traditions at this time of year is light, and about the birth of something that is more enlightened coming into the world. Not just more light, which we know will start today. This day, today, the day after the winter solstice, is just a smidgen longer than yesterday was. And the night will be just a smidgen shorter than yesterday was at the solstice when we have the long night. And so all over European households, they will do Yule logs at this time of year. And they put now candles on the Yule log in the fireplace to represent this return of light, to remember that it's not going to be like this forever, The sun is going to keep increasing. It's going to bring us more and more light. It's going to warm the ground. Things are going to come up out of the ground. They're going to blossom. They're going to bring forth fruit and food, and the animals will have babies, and they will provide food, and life will expand. And that is a message of hopefulness to us as we go through this season where we need to rest and rejuvenate. You know, all the plants that rest, all the animals that hibernate during the winter months, they reflect back to us that it's necessary for us to regroup, for us to get quiet, for us to do less and reflect. It's almost as if what the universe is encouraging us to do in the winter season is to gestate within ourselves. Something more wants to come forward, something more. Rumi said, set your life on fire. Seek those who fan your flames. And what we're doing during the winter season then is we are looking within to fan the inner flames, to bring ourselves into spring, to give ourselves time to deepen our roots, to expand our light, to grow our faith. This is really a time for us to be reflecting more. Where are the areas that I need to grow? Where are the areas where it's time for me to let go of old junk in my belief system, in my consciousness? What's been getting in my way of connecting more deeply with God, of connecting more deeply in my life? And we might wonder, you know, what was the purpose of the nativity story besides to impress people with the idea that, hey, we've got the goods over here because we've got this guy. He was born this way before he ever even healed people or did any of that other stuff. He was born like this. This was a big deal. This was a fulfillment of prophecy. This guy was a descendant of David. One of the Gospels goes through this lineage to try and prove he's a descendant of David, and then to go on to prove he's a descendant of Abraham. So not only is he royal in his descent from the king, but also he is descended from Abraham, the beginnings of Judaism. He is a Jew. He is connected to the community. So that was what that was what Luke was trying to emphasize. He was connected to the common people. Why? Because Luke was with Paul on missions to the Gentiles. So the idea that Jesus was a Jew royally descended from King David didn't mean a whole lot to them. But the fact that he was an ordinary man, born in difficult circumstances, by parents who didn't have anything, in a stable, that was to let all of those Gentiles know he's just like you. You're welcomed into this community of this wondrous one who started his life humbly, but was recognized. And from Matthew, who wanted to show more educated Jews that Jesus had descended along these sacred lines, as it was prophesied that he would be a descendant of King David. Does this make sense? They were writing to specific audiences for specific reasons. Therefore, a nativity story became a useful tool to do that and communicate something about Jesus, that they could trust him. They could trust what he taught. They could trust who he was. So, was he born in Bethlehem? Was he born of a virgin? Was he born in a stable? Or was he born at home in Nazareth to his mother and father? Well, Nazareth was not high on anybody's list of places to admire at that time in the ancient world. In fact, one of the sayings was, can anything good come out of Nazareth? So they wouldn't really want to advertise that he was born in Nazareth because there's nothing exciting about that. And that nobody noticed because there's nothing exciting about that. A woman walked into a hotel and she told the clerk she wanted to book a room. And the clerk said, "I'm sorry, ma'am," after he looked at her carefully. "We don't have any rooms available." And just at that moment, a man came up to check out. And so she immediately said, "I'll take his room." But the clerk replied, I'm sorry, we just don't have a room for you, ma'am. We don't rent to Jews." "Oh," she said, "and what makes you think I'm Jewish?" He said, "Well, do you believe in Jesus?" "Absolutely," she said. "Well, that's a start." "And where was Jesus born?" "In Bethlehem," she replied. "Okay," said the clerk. "Where in Bethlehem?" "Oh, in a stable," was her response. So the clerk leaned over the front desk and got right up to her, and he said, "And tell me then, why was Jesus born in a stable?" And she quickly said, "Because, like you, the innkeeper wouldn't rent a room to a nice Jewish lady." In the stable, with a star, with angels. Now, think of this. Can you imagine if you're a shepherd and you're out in a field somewhere where there's nothing around for miles? You're out in a field, right? And the sky's full of stars. Maybe it's a moonless night, so they're even brighter than ever. But there's one enormously bright star out there. And while you happen to be noticing that enormously bright star, stuff starts happening up there. And you're wondering what it is. And then you're thinking, surely not. These beings of light start showing up in the air, singing, and you're thinking, this is what a nervous breakdown feels like. Imagine that. So that's one wild idea. Now, the story does not faze anybody who's hearing it in that time period, because there were so many other gods and important leaders whose story was, well, Zeus impregnated her through a swan or through a particularly potent rain, or, and they knew all these stories. They knew them all. Now, they may have known too at the time that those stories were myths based around these wise people, but it didn't matter. It let you know the people that they were about were important. Nicola Ramsari said, "Launch out into the deep. Launch out with faith. Launch out with determination. Launch out with fear on your shoulder. Embrace possibilities. Embrace the struggle. Embrace the butterflies. Embrace the yes." So we're looking at this going, well, it doesn't sound very likely. That's okay. There must be something here for us in this story. It's not that we have to believe it literally happened like that. That's not really the important part of the story. So, what is the important part of the story? Well, Jesus was always a mystery. He seems to have been, as near as we can tell, a mystery to the people who knew him, even to his own family. There is the story that he disappeared for about a week. His parents, along with everybody else, had gone in a caravan to do whatever it was they were supposed to be doing, a pilgrimage, and he was about 12, and he was hanging out with the other families that had 12-year-olds and doing all that stuff. And then when they left, they figured he was just with another family. The caravan was going back, and they couldn't find him. After a few days, they couldn't find him. He wasn't anywhere with anybody in the caravan. Imagine how you'd feel if that was your 12-year-old. So they took off back to where they'd been, and they found him in the temple, speaking like a rabbi to the other rabbis, and they were asking him questions, and he was holding forth like, as if he'd actually been educated in their teachings and knew all this stuff. They were baffled by him. There's a big chunk of his life we don't have any information about at all. There's all sorts of stories about him going to the Far East and studying with masters and this and that and the other and learning about reincarnation, and that's another story. But we don't know what happened. We know that when he showed up for his cousin John in the River Jordan, his cousin baptized him and recognized him, at least as far as we know, as some kind of enlightened being right then. And of course, we have another story about everybody hearing the voice saying, "This is my beloved son in whom I am well pleased." But that's the voice that speaks to all of us. That's the voice that speaks about all of us. Every birth is worthy to be celebrated and recognized and acknowledged. The wonder of human beings. How is it that we are here and we are aware that we are here? We are aware of each other. We have not only consciousness, but self-awareness, that we can look and know. Now, we have cats, and they know when they're in trouble. And they know when they're doing something they aren't supposed to, pretty much. Although they always look at you in shock when you tell them no. Like, what did I do? So they have that kind of awareness. But a cat seeing itself in the mirror is likely to hiss because it doesn't recognize that it's them. The self-awareness that we have, what an amazing thing. So there's something going on that Jesus came for. Now imagine all of us come for a reason. So Jesus at one point said he was here for the lost sheep of Israel. He said, "I've been sent for the lost sheep of Israel." He said that in a particularly unenlightened moment, actually. So here we have a man who, for the most part, operates as an enlightened God-realized being, as far as we can see. This is the one who was born. And certainly he was born, right? And yet, he wasn't exactly perfect. In fact, for some of the Eastern religions, it's very difficult to accept Jesus as any kind of avatar because he cursed the fig tree. He killed a living thing. And in some Eastern religions, that in and of itself lets him out of the idea of having been an enlightened being. My joke about it is, he went to the fig tree, he was really hungry. He was on his way back from Jerusalem. It had been difficult. His blood sugar was low. He was hungry. He went to the fig tree. It was the wrong season. The thing didn't have any figs that were ripe, and so he cursed it, like it was the tree's fault that it wasn't summer and there was no fruit on the tree. So that was a bad day for him. And then I think either before or after that, he went off and cast all the merchants out of the temple entryway, threw over their tables, made a big fuss. It wasn't a good day. But not only that, there is also this episode of racial prejudice that we see from Jesus, where a Canaanite woman comes to him and she says, "My daughter is possessed with a demon. Please help me." And he says he ignores her. He just ignores her. And she's driving him crazy. The disciples go, "Will you say something to her? Because she's not going to stop." And so she says again. But Jesus says to the disciples, "Look, I'm sent to the lost sheep of Israel. That's it. I'm not here for her," basically. And she exhorts him again to please, help her. And he says to her, "It is not right to give the children's bread to the dogs." Now, one thing that I read said, the word that he uses isn't like a mongrel. It's more like a beloved pet. But still, you don't take your bread from the children and give it to your pets. Canaanites, like Samaritans, were not They were kind of historically enemies to the Jews, right? This woman is so determined to get help for her daughter. And she says to him, "Yes, Lord, but even the dogs are allowed to eat the scraps that fall from the table." So she didn't call him on his prejudice, but she did call him on his conclusion. And he said to the disciples, wow, this woman has faith. Wow, he says to her, you have tremendous faith. Let it be according to your faith then. In other words, your daughter's healed. But he did not respond to her as that he was here to serve someone who was asking him for something. He said no, basically. And then she had a comeback to that. She didn't just cower and go away, or she didn't go looking for somebody else. She insisted. It's sort of like the first miracle of Jesus is the wedding feast at Cana. They run out of wine early on in the celebration, and Mary, his mother, comes to him like a good Jewish mother, and she says, they're out of wine. What are you going to do about it? She doesn't say, what are you going to do about it, but it's implied, right? And he says, Mother, my time has not yet come. Like, chill, would you? And she doesn't argue with him. But within his hearing, she says to the wine stewards, do whatever he tells you. Well, what's he going to do now? He's stuck, right? So he turns the water into wine, and that's a big deal. And then the wine steward says, oh, you've saved the best wine until last, blah, blah, blah. So this is the guy. He does walk in the light, but he's not perfect all the time. He makes decisions and choices. He says no to people. At one point, they say to him, your mother and your brothers are outside. He goes, who are my mother and my brothers? No, they're just going to get on my case because they don't understand what I'm doing. So no, I'm not here for them today. Not the most compassionate response, right? Like, yeah, I'll go talk to them. No, that's not my mother and brothers. No. So the reason I'm saying all this is to say to you, this one that is held up as the great example, he was an amazing example, and we have also ample evidence that he was a person. He was a person. Now, that's good news for us, because what it means is that we see the capacity that we have for this life, this amazing way that we can recognize ourselves and be what we need to be. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, said, we think of Jesus as the way shower, as a divinely inspired personality, a teacher of man, a lover of humanity, and a spiritual genius. The conscious knowledge of God, which impregnated the mind of the man Jesus, we think of as Christ, or Christ consciousness, this impregnation of his mind with God. And it says, to worship this personality is idolatry. To believe that God gave more of himself to this man than to other men is superstition. To think that the word of Jesus had the power to change the natural order of reality or refute natural laws is ignorance. What he did know how to do was use the creative law to bring forth wisdom, healing, awakenings, moments of transformation. As other men, Jesus was a human being, Holmes goes on to say, but he was a spiritual genius. Just as we have had geniuses in every field of endeavor, so we have had spiritual geniuses, those who have seen more deeply into causation than others. Jesus, as a personality, has long since passed to other fields of activity. But the conscious knowledge of God, which endowed this unique man with what may be called the Christ consciousness, remains as a potentiality for all of us. For all of us. Jesus was here to bring the Jews closer to God. They were so wrapped up in the laws at the time and compliance with the laws, which is great, but it also meant that their actual heart connection to God was more in the head than in the heart. And so he began to refer to God as Papa. That's what Abba means in Aramaic. Papa, Daddy. And he referred to God as Spirit, but as a presence of forgiveness and generosity and love. And that relationship, that was what he wanted his people to regain, because it was what he felt in his heart for God. This is just as true for us as religious scientists. We get all into the vocabulary, the teachings, the philosophy, the jargon, the steps, doing the treatment according to the steps, remembering what is supposed to be said and what's supposed to be done and not done. It's all good. It's all good. But the spark, we really need the spark. And this is the time of year when we're invited to be the spark, to recognize ourselves as that spark, to be reminded of the inner spark and our connection with the divine. So Jesus was born somewhere. We know he was born somewhere. He was born, now scholars figure he was born somewhere between 6 and 4 BCE, probably, or maybe a little after that, but we don't know for sure. And probably not on December 25th, doesn't really matter. He may or may not have been born of a virgin. He certainly was born of a young woman. We know that. We know that he was born, as he said, to bring back the lost sheep of Israel. In other words, to reconnect with the source, to bring them back from wandering in the land of law, come back to their hearts, to their deep love connection with God. He told them the greatest commandment was love God with your whole heart, with your whole being, with your whole soul, with your whole body, your whole strength, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. So, love God, love your neighbor, love yourself. Those were his 3 things. He didn't say, follow all the laws. He did say, I haven't come to do away with the law and the prophets. But he did say, these were the orders of importance in terms of the commandments. So he came to cement that in us. Now we're at the time of year of the winter solstice, and we might need to then be able to ask ourselves, what are we here for then? Who was born? Well, we were. We were all born. We're right here, so that's proof enough. We were all born. And for what purpose were we born? The invitation at this time of year is for every one of us to look within and see, now at this time of my life, what am I here for? I'm still here, that's clear. Therefore, I'm not done yet. Terry McBride said once, if you want to see if your mission in life is finished yet, get a little mirror, hold it up under your nose. If it fogs up periodically, your work isn't done yet. We're still here for some reason. We may not know what it is. We may think, well, I did a bunch of stuff when I was younger and that was it. But we're still here, so we're not finished yet. Now, what does that mean? It means perhaps that we're called upon to let every moment now of our lives be an opportunity to share and spread light. Not that we are here to do huge things, although some of us may be Grandma Moses, you never know. Some of us may do huge things still, but not necessarily. And it doesn't matter in terms of the importance of what we pass on. What matters is that we meet that moment with that kind of love. A little boy asked his father, when he was about 8 years old, the little boy said to his dad, "Okay, now, I think I'm old enough to know the truth about Santa Claus. So I want you to tell me about Santa Claus." So now if you have little children, you're watching online, this story is not for them, okay? So I'll give you a moment. Do what you need to do. Do. Little boy, about 8 years old, he says to his father, I've been hearing various things, and I think I'm old enough to know the truth, so I just want to know, is there really a Santa Claus? And his father says, "Are you sure that you're old enough to know? You sure? I think maybe you are, but I want to be sure that you're sure before I say anything more." He says, "Yes, Dad, I want to know." He says, "Okay, well, I'll tell you the truth. Yes, there really is a Santa Claus. Santa Claus is every person who carries that love and light within them. And so at Christmas time, all of those who know this recognize their role is to be Santa Claus. And they bring the gifts for the little children from Santa Claus, because all of us then become Santa Claus. Now that you know the truth of this story, this becomes your identity too. So this year, when we're preparing things from Santa Claus for your little brothers and sisters, now you need to come and participate with us and keep the secret until they are old enough to become Santa Claus too. This is a wonderful reconfiguration of what happens in that discovery process, so that rather than be disappointed, we have a role to fulfill. We are old enough now to take on another job, another responsibility. Now, you may not have little tiny kids in your household, or you may not have little tiny kids in your family, but there are still opportunities for you to fulfill your service. Are there places to donate gifts? Are there places to donate funds? Are there places to remember the little ones or those that have very little? Sure, there are. So we are all called at this year to carry out a sacred function, which is to bring forward the light of hope and peace and joy and love and purity into other lives. It may be children. It may be having a happy conversation with somebody at the grocery store or the bank or the department store or the gas station. That's okay. That may be the moment when you're being jolly old. Yes. This awakening, and I know I'm going long today, but this awakening that we're called to, we can experience and express it moment to moment. And sometimes there's something that happens. It is said that somewhere around 90% of Americans have had some kind of a mystical or spiritual experience. We tend to discount those because we think, oh, it's a coincidence, or no, I must have made that up, or it wasn't as important as I thought it was in the moment. How many of you know that you've had some kind of a spiritual or mystical experience? Just look around. Some kind of a spiritual or mystical experience. That's a moment of reminder. It's a moment to let us know our identity. Do you have time for me to tell you one more story and then I'll stop? Can you live with one more? When I was in the School of Ministry, I had a meditation instructor who was a person who had actually experienced several profound spiritual experiences. He had been an officer on a U.S. naval submarine. And one of the young ensign, is that what they are when they're young guys in the Navy? What's the term? Yeah, ensign. One of the young guys who was newly on board liked to meditate, and the other guys in the unit thought that was hilarious. He would sit up on his bunk in the lotus position and they would poke him or tickle him or knock him off his bunk or, anything to just disrupt the thing. He had a copy of Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. And for some reason, he loaned it to Ron. Ron wasn't interested in meditation. He wasn't interested in Eastern philosophies. He wasn't interested in any of this stuff, but he started reading the book. Gave him something to do, right? At one point, he was so profoundly affected by this book, and he was sitting, he said, in his stateroom. As an officer, he had a good space there. He was sitting in his space on the submarine on a metal stool as he was reading this book. And he said, whatever it was he read, he closed the book and he said, I really need to know if this is true. Now, they were in completely calm waters. And at that moment, Ron's stool started going, and he jumped up off the stool and went, okay, because that was strange. And then he didn't want to give the book back because, this was powerful stuff. But the ensign wanted his book back, and he kept asking for it back. And finally, Ron gave it back to him. And they were inshore for mail call, and he got a package from his mother. And there was a letter with the package, and it said, I know that you're not interested in this. I am not at all interested in this, but I was in the bookstore looking for something to send you the other day, and this book fell off the shelf in front of me, and so I figured I'd send it to you. And it was Autobiography of a Yogi. So, when Ron finished reading that book, he saw that he could apply to be a monk with Ananda. And also, he researched a little bit and he found that the wait to, actually join was years long. So he thought, well, that's fine. I'll, probably be retired by then. That'll be okay. So he sent off his application to wherever the headquarters were, I think down in Los Angeles. And the next time they had mail call after that, he got an urgent letter that said, come immediately. And he thought, I'm a commissioned officer on a submarine. I can't just pick up and leave, And so he wrote to the head of the Navy. He wrote to his commanding officer. He wrote to everybody said, that's real funny, Ron. And one guy finally said to him, listen, Ron, tell you what, I'll make a deal with you. If you can find someone to take your commission on a submarine, I'll let you go. Right. So they were into port somewhere, and they had opened the submarine for touring, for people to come through. And one of the fellows that came through was an officer who had recently retired. And he was walking around the ship with Ron, and they were talking, and at one point he said, Ron, if I could have your post, I'd come back on active duty in a minute. And Ron said, are you serious? He said, yeah, I really would. Ron said, it's yours. He was at Ananda in nothing flat. Now, he has no idea what he's doing, right? This is a Navy commander. He's there at Ananda, and they're going through orientation. All the young, new monks are there, going through their orientation. And Yogananda died the same year, I think, as Ernest Holmes, 1960. This is considerably later. And he's sitting there, and one of the things they say to these fellows is, okay, now when Yogananda appears to you in your cell, and everybody's just listening, and Ron internally is going, when he what? He said he was in his cell with another young monk playing the, I can't remember what it's called. I want to say vibraphone. That's not right. But anyway, playing the harmonium. Yes, playing the harmonium. And they're chanting. And they hear someone chanting with them. Now, they're alone in this cell. He said, I didn't dare turn around to see who was in there with us. But we clearly, both of us, heard this chanting of these Yogananda chants going on behind them. This is a story of somebody I know or knew in my own life who experienced an awakening, a real awakening in his life that changed everything about the way he lived his life and who he recognized himself to be. He was just an ordinary man, no different from any one of us. So at this season, as you look at the lights, as you open presents, as you drink eggnog, or sing Christmas carols, or watch Christmas movies, or go out to dinner, or go to movies, whatever it is that you do in this season, know this. This season is also celebrating the light in you. What is it that we're here for? What is it that wants to be born in us? What is trying to come through? That's why we're still here, because there's something that's still trying to come through, maybe not only to be given, but also truly to be received and felt and known in our hearts. Next Sunday is the first Sunday of Hanukkah, so we will celebrate that. The day after Christmas is the beginning of Kwanzaa, so we'll celebrate that. And we celebrate now Advent and Christmas with a recognition that the birth of this light in us, that's what we're really here to celebrate. And so it is. Namaste. All right, I'm gonna pray fast. So let's turn within, knowing now that there is one presence, one power, everywhere in everything and everyone, always and ever. Everywhere and every when. Those whens, past and future for us, are all in the now. And the light that birthed everything that exists also birthed us, and we are filled with that light, with the peace, the joy, the hope, the love, and the purity of the one. This is our truth. We claim it. We allow it. We invite it, and we celebrate it. We let this prayer go into the law, affirming that this is done in us right now. And together we say, and so it is. Please stand and join me for the morning affirmation. This one is short and sweet. Together, my passion and joy lead me into greater expression and fulfillment. I let the fire of infinite love blaze in my heart. And so it is. Thank you. Now, I'd like to invite the ushers to come forward. You may be seated. This is our sacred offering time. If you're online and you'd like to text an offering, you can certainly do that. Just text to this number the dollar amount you'd like to give, and then just follow the directions. And we want to bless all the gifts in this room this morning, ours that we're giving here today, our own presence, and all the gifts that have been given to Golden Gate through this past week. So we do that by saying this offering together right now. This gift I give is God in action. I now send it forth to bless and to prosper. I know that everywhere it goes, it is creating a world living in love, one heart and one thought at a time. And so it is. Go ahead.
Beloved community, we gather in unity. All are welcome here, all are blessed, and a blessing to be. Beloved community, where we discover divinity, recovering who we are in our beloved community. It doesn't matter where we've come from, it doesn't matter what we've undone. All that matters is we're here now, heart, let Spirit work it out. Beloved community, we gather in unity. All are welcome here, all are blessed and a blessing to be. Beloved community, where we discover divinity, recovering who we are in our beloved community. It doesn't matter where we've come from, it doesn't matter what we've undone. All that matters is we're here now. Keep an open heart, let Spirit work it out. Beloved community, we gather in unity. All are welcome here, all are blessed and a blessing to be. Beloved community, where we discover divinity, recovering who we are in our beloved community. Recovering who we are in our beloved community. Recovering who we are in our beloved community.
So all of us here, on behalf of Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living, do accept these offerings with love, and we send them out into the world to awaken people to the light in them. And so it is. If you're here for the first time, please visit the table where Galen is to pick up a welcome packet along with any other handouts you'd like. And in the welcome packet, you'll find a blue card. Fill that out and give it to her, and she's going to give you a little book as a thank you gift for being here today, and also an invitation to be back with us in the future. We're delighted that you're here, all of you. Also, I want to thank all of you here today who have made this place so lovely and our experience so beautiful, especially this gorgeous altar that Leslie did today for us. So let's acknowledge all these folks. Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. All right. Now, two things for next Sunday. One is we will not be here next week. Do not come here. We will not be at the community center. It is closed. No one will be here, in fact. We will be at the Corte Madera Best Western Inn over on Madera Boulevard. So it's very close here. It's just on the north side of Town Center Mall. Make sure you go there at 11 o'clock, and we'll have a fabulous morning together. What did I say? Oh, no, 10 o'clock, 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock, come at 10 o'clock. I don't want to be there by myself. Come at 10 o'clock. And, thank you very much, and we will see you there. Also, next Sunday, the Walkers are hosting a lovely Fifth Sunday brunch at their house. Yay! And so there is a sign-up sheet back on this table that will allow Jet to know how many people are coming, because she's providing the spread. You only need to bring food if you have special dietary requirements. Otherwise, just come. But we do need to carpool because there's not much parking up near the house. So work it out with one another so that you can meet downtown in Tiburon and consolidate and then come up. And that will work better. But be sure you sign up so she knows how many people we're expecting. All right? Also, Karen Frost and I are going to be teaching foundations, and I want to invite our practitioner, Leslie, to come up and tell you a little bit about her perspective on foundations class. So Karen and I will be doing that mid-January, and registration is open now. The early bird price is available.
Well, the foundations class changed my life. When I walked in here 14 years ago, I was looking for God. I was looking for the truth. And I was really determined. I had come out of slight trauma, and I heard the truth here, so I signed up for Foundations. And there was a point in the middle of that class where I exclaimed, "I'm in the truth." I couldn't have been more surprised that the truth I was looking for was a universal truth within me. You know, I was walking through life, living the law of averages here on earth, and I was raised up to a spiritual, inspirational individualization. So I highly recommend Foundations class.
That's great. Thank you, Thank you, Leslie. That was beautiful. Yeah. So we're offering transformation. It's only 10 weeks. And there is a weekend workshop as well that's specifically about prayer. You can indicate your interest on a sign-up sheet back on the events table, the activities table, but at the same time, register on our website. Go ahead and register for class on our website. You'll find the tab that'll get you there, and you'll get the early bird pricing, which is a great way to do it. Also, on the 5th of January, we're going to do a particular acknowledgement and welcome for the knitters and crocheters. The knitting club of Corte Madera made all these Afghans hats to go to Ukraine, to go to Reverend Barbara's classes there, and to support the teachers and the children. So every classroom will have some kind of a blanket as a comfort, so that there will be extra hats for all the little tiny people. And they have been knitting, and they've created all this wonderful stuff. So this is the Corte Madera Knitting Club. They have been invited to be with us on the 5th of November, which is the first Sunday of the month. So that is Partnership Sunday, and the table for Ukraine, for Opportunity Ukraine, is going to be up also. But we want to bring extra goodies that day for snacks. We want to really welcome them and thank them for taking this on, because some of these knitters are from our congregation, but not all of them. And they took on this wonderful work, and they're going to keep on knitting. If any of you want to learn how to knit or crochet, we might find some of them who are up for teaching a class. It's going to be the 5th of January. So it'll be right here. It's the first Sunday of the new year. And they're going to be here. So we're looking forward to welcoming them that day with extra goodies and lots of warmth and acknowledgement. So plan to be here so you can do that with us. Also want to remind you that if you are needing to do year-end distributions from any of your investment accounts, we would just be thrilled and honored to receive some of that. And or if you just want to make an extra donation at the end of the year, Golden Gate would be thrilled to get that. We're still ooching up on being in the black at the end of the year. You know, we got a little behind through the year as some of our dear souls made their transitions this year. So if you have anything extra you can share, we would be thrilled and delighted to receive that. And for those of you that already have, thank you. We're very, very grateful. All right. Let's see. There's one other thing I wanted to say. In your bulletin, you're going to see an announcement for coffee and faith conversations once a month with Leslie Giannetti. And there is a sign-up sheet back at the table if you're interested in doing that with a group of congregants and facilitated with Leslie, our practitioner, there doing that. So remember, that's available for you starting, I think, January 8th. All right? And the information's in your bulletin. And prayer. May I invite the practitioners to surround the room now. Remember to go to our practitioner table. It can't hurt you. You're already late. You might as well take a little extra time, get a prayer before you go home today. And just tune with us one more time here together, as we know together that light is in this place, that we are made from the light, from the truth, as Leslie said. We are the embodiment of the wholeness of the divine presence. We regard then the truth of ourselves with awe and amazement and appreciation. we allow and invite that divine presence within us and the activity of the creative law through us to operate now, awakening us to every place that we can shed a little light. And we go forth from here like beacons of joy. We let this go into the creative law with great gratitude and just let it be. And together we say, and so it is, yes. Stand and join us for the closing blessing and song. And after this last song is over, I think that before we leave, we need to sing to each other, "We wish you a Merry Christmas." So don't sit down right away after the end of the song, because we're going to do that too. Without accompaniment, we're just going to leap into the unknown together. So first we say this: I now walk, so that whoever walks beside me dwells in the presence of God. And whoever places a hand in mine is lifted. And whoever thinks of me is illumined with God consciousness. For spirit and all people and I are one eternally. And so it is. And here's the last song. We've sung
It's been
this
great being with you again this morning. I hope to see you really soon. Have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Please sing this song with me as we go out into the world. Make me an instrument. Make me an instrument. Make me an instrument of peace. Sing that again. Make me an instrument. Make me an instrument. Make me an instrument of peace. Where there is hatred, where there is hatred, I will love. Where there is sadness, where there is sadness, I will bring joy. Where there is darkness, where there is darkness, I will shine. Claim it for yourself. I am an instrument of peace. Then make it your prayer. Make me an instrument of peace. Sing it again with me. Make me an instrument. Make me an instrument. Make me an instrument of peace. Make me an instrument. Make me an instrument. Make me an instrument of peace. Where there is hatred, where there is hatred, I will love. Where there is sadness, where there is sadness, I will bring joy. Where there is darkness, where there is darkness, I will shine. I am an instrument of peace. Then make me an instrument of peace. Make me an instrument one more time. Make me an instrument. Make me an instrument. Make me an instrument of peace. Make me an instrument. Make me an instrument. Make me an instrument of peace. Where there is hatred, here we go. Where there is hatred, I will love. Where there is sadness, I will bring joy. And where there is darkness, where there is darkness, I will shine. Claim it. I am an instrument of peace. Make me an instrument of peace. Claim it one more time. I am an instrument of peace. As we go out, make me an instrument of peace. Make me one more time. Make me an instrument of peace. I love you.
Okay, you know the words, all right? So We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Woo! Merry Christmas, everyone. Have a wonderful one.